It started as a solitary, weak speck of light moving unseen across the blackness of space. Scientists at first thought it was another comet, a fleeting visitor from the far end of the universe. But the information soon showed something nobody could account for. The object, called 3I/Atlas, wasn't alone. Trailing behind came not one, not 100, but more than 10,000 smaller followers, each going the same exact route through space. They flowed as one, like a river of incandescent embers, as if responding to an unseen command. Initially, scientists thought that objects were parts broken off by gravitational or heat forces. But when the James Webb Space Telescope pointed its golden mirrors toward the structure, what it observed jolted the scientific community. The swarm was not random, it was structured, flawlessly coordinated, and flowing with ghostly precision, as if driven by a purpose. Some considered it the first ever interstellar convoy detected, but others hinted at the possibility that perhaps it wasn't even natural. Whatever it was, the world had sent a message to humans in not words but motion, and it was more frightening than anyone could have ever imagined. The tale started when NASA's Atlas Survey telescope picked up a rapidly moving object cutting across the night sky. Initially reported as a near-Earth asteroid, the analysis showed something much stranger. Its path was hyperbolic rather than elliptical, so it wasn't tied to the sun in any way. It was coming through our solar system from very deep interstellar space. That one measure, an eccentricity of more than 1, validated its provenance. It wasn't from around here. 3I/Atlas was only the third confirmed interstellar visitor, after the detection of Oumuamua and 2I/Borisov. But that was just the start. When the MMT Observatory in Arizona turned its eye on it, the photos revealed something never seen before, a halo of thousands of smaller objects following the comet, creating an enormous structure more than 120,000 kilometers long. Even more remarkable, these pieces of debris moved in nearly perfect harmony, at a relative velocity of less than 1 meter per second, a sight no model of cometary disintegration could account for. A destructive explosion would have released pieces randomly through space, but these fragments floated toward one another as if drawn by memory, by intent. Only for the first time did astronomers see that they were observing not a broken object, but an organized system, an epiphany that shook everything to its core. As the James Webb Space Telescope directed its gaze toward 3I/Atlas, scientists anticipated witnessing randomness, dust, gas, and ice suspended without direction. Rather, the telescope revealed a system so deliberate it could not be dismissed. The central nucleus, measuring 800 meters across, was surrounded by a battery of some 10,000 individual bodies ranging from mountain-sized pieces to microscopic particles. Each one radiated a subtle but detectable infrared signature. The swarm glowed with chemicals never found together before: cyanide, methane, formamide, complex organics, and even precursors to amino acids such as glycine. More chilling still, their isotopic signatures did not match any part of our solar system. It was as if these materials had been created in an entirely foreign chemistry, in a realm far from anything humanity had ever examined. What shocked scientists most, however, was not the chemistry, but the order. The swarm seemed to migrate in clusters and layers, forming rings and stretched-out spirals, each circling non-visible centers of gravity. The patterns were repeated at various scales, and the result was a fractal-like form that reflected mathematical order. One astrophysicist whispered what everyone was afraid to say out loud: "It's behaving like a system, as if it's self-organizing." Each test that followed only added to the enigma. Computer simulations indicated that if such a swarm had persisted for millions of years, gravitational tides and interstellar forces would have long since disassembled it. But 3I/Atlas and its companions traveled with eerie precision, tied together by some force beyond the laws of physics. Some scientists proposed that exotic mechanisms could be at work, maybe resonant fragmentation, a subtle disintegration caused by internal oscillations in phase with exterior cosmic forces. Others guessed something even more astounding, that this was not fragmentation, but an incomplete creation, a world that had started to coalesce but never finished being born, a locked-in remnant of creation itself. But a few did not have the courage to speak up and propose a more disturbing hypothesis: what if it wasn't natural? What if the swarm was built? a gigantic variety of probes designed to collect and send data, scattering through the galaxy like seeds? Webb's infrared observations confirmed this disturbing possibility. Numerous pieces radiated energy bursts at regular periods, occurring every few minutes, a rhythmic cycle too calculated to dismiss. When European Southern Observatory astronomers matched Webb's infrared data against radar echoes from NASA's Deep Space Network, they found something eerie. The swarm's spatial distribution contained ratios exactly like those in organic chemistry, just like the mathematical symmetries of DNA. Even fragment cluster distances duplicated the same proportions seen between nucleotides and genetic material. To most scientists, it was chance. To some, it was a message, a language inscribed not in light or sound, but in matter itself. If so, 3I/Atlas was more than a comet. It was an archive alive, a cosmic record seed dispersing its information throughout the universe like spores. Perhaps every piece wasn't wreckage, but a carrier, a messenger from a long-dead civilization, or from nature itself, chronicling the chemistry of life. And as it floated closer to the inner solar system, one question became impossible to avoid: was this the start of contact, or the remainder of extinction? Weeks following the initial discovery, the James Webb team started to observe something nobody could account for. Occasionally, every few hours, the swarm released a barely audible but regular pulse of infrared radiation, so weak it threatened to disappear into cosmic background radiation. But charted over time, those pulses created a repeating curve, steady and measured, the same 147 interval pattern previously observed in 3I/Atlas's own power output months before. But now, the rhythm wasn't limited to the nucleus, it vibrated through the swarm, as if every fragment echoed the same signal, orchestrated by an unseen maestro. Others likened it to neural networks, where every fragment operated as an autonomous node connected by a shared algorithm. The pulses appeared to control not energy, but movement, incrementally fine-tuning trajectories, avoiding collisions, holding formation. A natural swarm would have long since scattered, but this behaved like a machine, learning to maintain order out of chaos. And with the signal increasing, there arose a chilling thought: maybe we weren't observing an object learned to fit into its surroundings, but an environment learning to fit into it. With triangulated data from the Hubble Space Telescope, Gemini South, and James Webb, astrophysicists built a 3D simulation of the swarm's motion, and what they discovered violated the rules of orbital mechanics. The 10,000 bodies weren't behaving haphazardly. They were creating a geometric lattice, a dynamic architecture in the form of a torus encircling a spiral. Each piece had a position with respect to sacred geometry's mathematical proportions, the Fibonacci series, and even quantum resonance frequencies. Some called it coincidence, others referred to it as code, a math utterance floating silently in space. Over time, the internal structure of the swarm changed, folding and unfurling like some gigantic mechanical bloom, its frozen particles glinting with sunlight in rhythmic pulses. Moving, it no longer resembled debris, but rather a living machine, an organism responding to solar radiation and its symmetry. The deeper Webb dug, the more apparent things became. The swarm wasn't trailing behind 3I/Atlas. It was orbiting around it, shielding it, as if to guard something inside. Concerned by the implications, NASA and the European Space Agency made a radical choice. They would target the entire might of Webb's near-infrared array at the center of 3I/Atlas, intent on discovering if the swarm's impossible motion was being orchestrated from inside the nucleus itself.